Yes, so we're going to pick up. We're still in Deuteronomy chapter 1. It's still very much the first and second verse. It actually says, Bein Paran ubein Tophel, between a place called Paran and Tophel. And we already mentioned in the previous video that many of these places don't really exist. Paran exists, but Tophel doesn't. Okay, and some of the other places that are going to be mentioned, because Moses is giving them rebuke. And he's giving it to them in a hinting fashion by mentioning these places, and they would pick up the idea that this is where they sin with a particular mistake, and they would understand that they have to do tshuva. So it's interesting because it says in Hebrew, Bein Paran ubein Tophel. And if I say Bein ubein, it really means between. Between here and between there, but I'm not mentioning any, I'm just saying it means between. So if you take out the proper noun of what we're talking about, it's just the language, between. Even in English, they say between Paran, but it doesn't say and between Tophel, but it really between Paran and between Tophel. So if we go, that's what the Hebrew is. Bein Paran or Bein Tophel, the Lashon, Bein ubein, there's no, what does it mean? Ein lo shachar v'yishuv klal b'perish Rashi. According to the Kli Yakar, he's actually going to argue with Rashi. Now, what does it mean to argue with him? He's not saying that Rashi, whatever Rashi's saying is wrong. He's saying that's not the source, that's not the most pashut, that's not the most simple explanation for the verse. I'll give you the most simple explanation verse. What Rashi is saying is a different level of understanding. He cannot argue with Rashi because Rashi's bringing verses and understanding from the Gemara, from the Oral Torah. So whenever you see arguments, the arguments are usually on not that what you're saying isn't true, what you're saying isn't the first level of understanding. There's a more simple way of understanding, and what you're saying is a deeper level. So according to the Kli Yakar, when it says Tophel, I'm telling you it means this, Rashi says it means that. That doesn't mean that Rashi's wrong. Just that he's saying Rashi chose the wrong source to explain the Pashut Pshat, the simple explanation. So anytime you hear arguments among rabbis, 99.9% of what they already agree on. It's one little nuance, and it sounds like it's a huge argument between night and day, and it usually is not. So listen to what he's, and you know what he even says? If I was Rashi and I wanted to prove the point, I would have used a different source. And it really strengthens Rashi. And then he goes ahead and uses a different understanding. And his understanding is what I want to enlighten you tonight with. So he says there's no way to really clarify and understand Rashi's point of view. And another question he says is, Lama lo hiskil lefachot beremez inyan mei meriva. In other words, the waters of strife, that's not mentioned, and it could have been mentioned. If you look in Psalms 106, look, he wants to say all the provocations of God are not mentioned. For example, the waters of Merivah. If you look in Psalms 106:32, it says, they provoked God by the waters of Merivah. V'yak tzifu al mei Merivah. They provoked Hashem. And of course, Moses suffered because of them. Okay, so that's the first point he wants to make, that not every argument or contention against God is mentioned. Im came hayum mekafim l'Hashem. Lama lo zachar Moshe klal kol akasim shehikisu. Why didn't Moses, because these are all coming from Moses, why didn't Moses mention all the different times and places that the Jewish people angered God? So rather, there's some very interesting inference that he wants to make by using the language bein ubein, a very important lesson of hinting. Remember we said in the last video that the hinting is the greatest way of giving rebuke. Why? Because at Paran was the place that the spies were sent from. And just by mentioning Paran, which is a real place, you're reminding them of the spies. And Tophel, according to Rashi, that is talking about the man, the heavenly food, the angel cake that we ate. And how do we know? Look in Bamidbar, that's Numbers 21:5, right? The people spoke against God and Moses. Why have you brought us out of Egypt to die in the desert? There is no bread and no water. We're disgusted with this rotten bread. They called the man from heaven angel food. They called rotten bread. Can you imagine rotten bread? It's like hard to even get your head around that if you were given man, it would be, you would call it rotten bread. Unbelievable. But if you do look, you can look at Rashi on that. It's on the next page on 5, but we'll go on. So basically, he wants to say that Beini ubeina, ubeinei kara inyan memriva, that the truth is between these two. In the meanwhile, what occurred was the waters of contention. Afapi shemachaluchto shel Korach niktav achmas meraglayim. Even the instance of Korach actually happened after the spies. Nevertheless, it's written as if it happened before. Remember an important lesson. There is no order to the Torah. You need the oral Torah to understand what happened first, what happened second. Because Rashi even mentions the word Chatzerot, right? By Chatzerot. So what do we know? When did the machlokas of Korach take place? Look in 12:16. Where is 12? Did I bring it down? So I guess I didn't. So if you look in Numbers 12:16, you'll see it says V'yisu mechatzerot v'yechanu b'midbar paran. That Chatzerot, that's where Korach dispute took place, and that happened before the spies were sent. So from there, meaning Paran, is where the spies were sent from. So what do you hear from this? That between the action of the spies that happened in Paran, and between the Ma'aseh Tofel, which again, it's not clear what that is. Rashi says that it's the complaining about the man. Lo haya biyadam ki imashi hiksifu al meimriva. It sounds like the only thing they had in their hands to complain about at the time was the waters. As if to say, Zikru hamaseh sh'asitam ben shnei gvulim elu. This is where we're going to start getting into the meat and potatoes. That it's a mentioning of an action, whatever Bain Ubain is, that something happened between two borders that were set up. And this is a hint within a hint, because according to Moshe, even Moses sinned in this. Even Moses sinned with the Mei Merivah. And what was he afraid they would do? That they would say, Tol Koreh, you're telling us you have a bigger problem. Moses was not allowed into the land of Israel because of that sin. Al kain hivliach et zeh bekodim u'meuchar. That's why that sin was absorbed in and placed before and after. Ki mehem lochach raya shehema hayusiba. From them, you actually could take a proof that this was actually the reason. That what? The ikar chet tluy bechem. That the prime sin was actually in them. They caused Moses to sin. Ki ra'u ma she'asitem b'paran, where it says over there, look in, it's also in Bamidbar, Numbers 14:4. I didn't put any of this on here?
That was 8.
Number 8, because I turned the page, that's why. Okay. So 14:4, right? They said to each other, let us appoint a leader and return to Egypt. They were tired of Moses. They wanted a new king. They wanted a new leader. And not only that, you know what they said? They also said, V'chein betofel amartem, also regarding the manna, the angel cakes. Lama elituni mimitzrayim. Why did you bring us up from Egypt? Right? Just to kill us? And also by the Mei Merivah. Lama helitunu mimitzrayim. Why did you bring us up? It's all the same theme. So from here you have a proof that every sin causes another sin that's similar to it. So whatever was before was whatever was after. It also teaches or reflects about a sin that was done beini u beini in the meanwhile, and that was placed on him, I mean this Moses, placed on them, but not on me, Moses. Okay, so if that was confusing, now we're going to get clarity. Okay, so when we go back to the statement, Bein Paran u Bein Tophel, meaning between these two places, the Lashon u Bein, he says, this is the place where I'm going to add a whole nother level of understanding to explain what this concept is that it's the time period between the 17th of Tammuz and the 9th of Av. Why? Because we already know now that the Paran was the place where the spies took place. But in it, right, on the 9th of Av, there would be a crying, a bachu bechia shachina, a crying for nothing, and not only that, v'hukva bechi ledoros b'lau Tisha B'Av, that there would be it would be established for crying for all generations on the 9th of Av, and Tophel is nothing to do with the previous statement according to the way Rashi explained it, but Tophel has to do with idol worship. It has to do with the sin of the golden calf, which took place on the 17th of Tammuz. And he's going to prove it. The Tophel is the Egel Asher Osah. It's referring to the golden calf which they made. Kimasha perish Rashi. Now he's going to go back to Rashi's statement that the Tiflu Alaman, that they were disgusted on the man. The word Tiflu means disgusted. Ein lo dimyon benikra. According to the Kli Yakar, you don't find any comparison of Tiflu relating to man in all of the Torah. But guess what? The Kli Yakar finds one. But he says, because Rashi didn't mention it, I'm going to throw the whole thing out. It would have been better and more proper if Rashi would have explained it from the language that you'll find in Job 6:6. Look in Job 6:6, number 10. Can bland food be eaten without salt? Hayeh achel tefel, tofel, mivli melach? Right? Meaning tefel can mean like secondary. The real taste is from the prime food, and whatever is secondary, whatever is bland, whatever is not the ikar.
What is it? Tefel?
Tefel. I don't know. Not here. This is in the Chumash. Tefel here means bland. Okay? Bland food. So watch what he says. Ki kol davar she'en bo tam, anything that doesn't have taste is called tafel. Zehaya maskim l'divrei Rashi. And this, Rashi should agree. This would actually fit well. In other words, if Rashi had only used this verse, I would even agree with Rashi. But Rashi didn't. Avalafishar darkenu karov lishmo. But according to my way of explaining it, according to the Kli Yakar, it's easy to understand that the Masa Egel, that the actual making of the golden calf, which is hinted at in the word Tophel, we find actually by idol worship in several places. So the first place he brings in Jeremiah 23:13. See, in the prophets of Samaria, Shemron, Ubeniviyeh Shemron, Ri'iti Tifla. I saw Tifla. So we're talking about, even though it says unseemliness, think of it as things that are not, what's the word I'm looking for? False. Things that are false. Okay? They were the prophets of Samaria. I saw falseness. They prophesied by Baal and misled my people Israel. So you see that it's relating to idol worship, and idols are false. Idols are not God. Idols are worthless. So that's the first proof he brings. And okay. And also look in Eicha's Lamentations 2, verse 14. It says, your prophets have seen false and senseless visions for you. Niviyecha chazu loch shav v'tafel. Shav is meaningless, right? Shav is no value. And Tethel, lo gilu, they didn't reveal anything, okay? They're not exposed. So what are we saying here? The prophets have seen shav, false, and another sense of falseness, of fake, okay? That's what it means. And in Yecheskel, in Ezekiel 13:11, now this is a little bit hard to understand, but basically you're talking about when you buy a house, when you go in, the owner is obligated to tell you what is really wrong with the house. But what does he do instead? He plasters over the cracks in the walls and he paints them. But you know what's going to happen? It's going to fall apart later, and then it's going to be too late. So he violated the law. So this verse is saying, say to the plasterers with thou, behold, it will fall. Right? If there will be driving rain, then you with gigantic hailstones will fall, and the storm wind will crack it. In other words, don't plaster over the bad stuff. So the word tache tethel, they plastered over the false stuff, the bad stuff. So he says, this is what was said by the people who made the ego. Remember the people who made the golden calf? They said, "Hear, O Israel, this is your God who took you out of Egypt." Is that true or false? What do you say? It was false. It was like plastering over, right? It was all these vanities. So the word tethel applies. They were like, they were giving God falsities. And all that happened on the 17th of Tammuz. And what happened on the 17th of Tammuz? The tablets were broken. And guess what God did? He said, just like you broke these tablets, the stones will forever be broken on this day for generations to come. And that's why on the 17th of Tammuz, the walls of Yerushalayim were breached. The stone walls of Yerushalayim were breached. So now you have Shnei Gvulim Elu, Ubein Shnei Gvulim Elu Yisrael Roivetz Bein Mishpatayim. Between these two dates, between the 17th of Tammuz and Tisha B'Av, Israel is sitting and crouching in judgment. We are being judged. This is the language Bein Ubein, between. As it says here, now look in Eicha 1:3. Eicha is Lamentations 1:3. Do I have it on here? It's one of the most important verses. I can't believe I didn't bring it. I think it might have been brought earlier. Huh? Okay.
15.
It's on 15?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You just wrote the wrong chapter.
No, it is 5:3. Ah, it's 1:3. Yeah. Okay, look at number 15. Yehuda went into exile because of affliction and great servitude. Gosa Yehuda ma'oini meiroi v'voidahi. Yoshva b'goyim. She settled amongst the goyim. Lo matza menuach. She didn't find any rest. And ready, now these are the important words. Kol rotheha hisiguha bein hamitzarim. All her pursuers, we're talking about exile, we're talking about the darkest of times, we're talking about affliction and servitude, being amongst the goyim, amongst the Gentile nations. And what happens? We find no rest, and the pursuers, kol rotheha, anybody chasing us, catches up to us. When? Bein hamitzarim, between the straits. What does it mean between the straits? Between her boundaries? These boundaries. We refer to these 3 weeks, from the 17th of Tammuz to the 9th of Av, as Bein HaMitzarim. We restrict ourselves from having good times and tiyulim and swimming and all kinds of stuff. Because, why? Because dangerous. Very dangerous. So many pogroms, so many tragedies. You know, I can just tell you a few. You know, let's go work backwards. We're going to work backwards. Should we work backwards? Kuwait was invaded in 1990 by Saddam Hussein on Tisha B'Av. And of course, we know that led to the first war, the second war, and we had Scuds. We also know that World War II is an extension of World War I. Horrible things happened in World War II. On World War I, there was an assassination in the middle of the summer. I forget what year it was, in 1914, 1913, whatever. World War I started because of an assassination that took place on Tisha B'Av. In 1492, I mean, I don't have the whole list with me, but this is just the major.
First cattle car.
First cattle car, what?
Went to Jamaica.
Yeah. Okay. So you have 1492. Do you know that the day Columbus set sail was the day after Tisha B'Av? The decree from Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand was the Jews were expelled or had to die or convert on Tisha B'Av. And Columbus asked to leave the next day because he had many Jews on his boat, and he asked that they don't travel on Tisha B'Av. And of course, we're working our way backwards. You know, the second temple was destroyed on Tisha B'Av. The first temple was destroyed on Tisha B'Av. But the first Tisha B'Av of all time, we know, was in the desert with the spies and the bad report on Israel. So it was set as a time not for good things. So this is a very important verse. Kol rodfeh hisiguha bein hamitzarim. Am I in the right place? Ki bein chet ha'egel ubein chet ha'meraglim koru rovetz. So between the sin of the golden calf and the sin of the spies, we're sitting like crouching to be pounced upon. V'dochu v'lo yochu klum. And we're being pressed and we're not able to stand up. Now this is going to be the solution. Guys, now we heard all the bad stuff. And this is going to be the musar. This is the ethical teachings we need to take with us. That we're going to see that there's a natural way, ke'ilu, as if there is no God. But we're going to see cannot even be possible. And one is a more spiritual way. But the truth is, they're both very spiritual. But one is God influenced, and the other one is coming from our own influence. So the way he says it is b'derech hateva. If you want to think about in natural terms, a person cannot be saved. Okay, let me just read it. Ki b'derech hateva ein hatzali b'bnei akat oyev o im be'echad b'shnei derachim o b'shneim ke'echad. To be saved from being pounced on by the enemy, except in one of two ways or both. So he's going to give you two options or both. You got two options, or the third option, A, B, or A and B. The first way is through the divine providence of God. May he be blessed. God will save anyone who clings to him, who has an intimate relationship with him. Af im enan atzumim b'teva. Even if you are not strong, if you're not physically strong, but God will save you. However, whenever you fulfill the mitzvah, love the Lord your God, which can be found where? Yeah, what number are we at? Page 6?
Yeah.
Page 6, number 16. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might, with all your ability. So if you do that, you love God, it causes, right? What happens? It causes you to even come closer to God. Then he will save all those who cling to him. That's from the godly side. What about a more natural side? Hey, mitzvah teva, the other idea is from the natural side. When you fulfill the mitzvah, remember, any mitzvah is not natural, okay? It's supernatural. But when you fulfill the mitzvah, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself, this is in Leviticus 19:18. You should neither take revenge nor bear a grudge against the members of your people, but rather what should you do? You should love your neighbors yourself. It's a mitzvah in the Torah. Then what happens? Az ish et re'ehu ya'ozru. When you love people, people love you back. And if you're down on your luck, people will come and help you. You need a loan, it'll come much easier if you're a nice person. If you're one of those people nobody wants to really be around, I'm not sure how many people lend you money. or help you get out of your pit. This is like incredible. He wants to go so far as to say, if you're a really nice guy, even if you're a sinner, and you removed your relationship with God from upon you, nevertheless, there's a little bit of hope in a natural way, as long as and provided you didn't really upset the apple cart. He uses words, if you didn't go against the matrix, if you didn't go against the ma'aracha, the system. Now these two time periods, we said about the 17th of Tammuz and the 9th of Av. These two time periods, Israel lost both aspects of help. They lost their Devekas Hashem, they lost their clinging, cleavage, intimate relationship with God, and they lost their relationship with other people. We'll explain now. Because once you lose God and you lose other people, who's going to come and help you? On the 17th of Tammuz, what did they do? They built the ego. And in it, what happens? They went backwards. Devekas Hashem is meaning an ever longing for that relationship and moving closer. But what happened on the 17th of Tammuz? They went in reverse. They turned away from God. Upinues el Hashem yizbrach oiref. You know what they did? They turned the back of their necks to God. Velo panim, not their faces. And now we know why the month of Tammuz is Cancer, is the crab. How does a crab walk? A crab walks on, I don't know how many legs he has, but he doesn't walk in a straight line forward. He walks sideways or he walks backwards. And what does he it's like that we showed God the back of our necks. So the astrological sign for the month of Tammuz is the sartan, is the crab. Shedarko leilek la'achurav. His way is to walk backwards. Kak nizra achur. He turned around. V'az ivdu hatzala haba mipat hashgacha. And therefore we lost our saving grace, so to speak, that normally would have come from the clinging, the cleaving, the intimate relationship with God. And what happened on Tisha B'Av? We had the sin of the spies. And on that day was born a character trait which we called Sinat Chinam. Sinat Chinam means baseless hatred. Hatred for each other. Hatred for Israel. As it says, listen to these verses in 26, 27, Deuteronomy 1:27. Now this is going to be a really interesting psychological statement. It says, you murmured in your tents, this is Moses speaking, because the Lord hates us. He took us out of the land of Egypt. I mean, it's almost hard to say these words, but this is what they said. The generation that left Egypt said, because the Lord hates us, He took us out of the land of Egypt. How could they psychologically think that God hates them? You got to read that Rashi on that. You read it? It says like this. Rashi says right there, you know the psychological aspect? What is in your own heart. Okay, let me start from the beginning. They said because the Lord hates us, but really the truth was God loves you. You hate God. Now how can you say God hates me? What's the psychological aspect? Because we have this concept that says like this. What is in your own heart about your friend, you imagine is in his heart about you. So what does that mean? That they thought God hated them because they hated God. How do they hate God? They were hating each other. In other words, let's go through this now. It says like this. Have a good Shabbos. Surah, Amen. So Rashi says, what's in your heart about your friend is really what is in you. You imagine that's what is in his heart about you. Meaning, this is what they thought: that after each one of them hated his friend, so then most likely what would be the next step is Sona Otam Gam, God must hate them. They had the second problem. They did not fulfill love your neighbor as yourself. They hated each other. That was born into the world, this idea of sinat chinam, of causeless hatred. They hated each other, and they can only imagine that their friend hates them, right? Whatever you think is in the heart of your friend. So that's the psychological basis. So after they made this mistake by thinking that God hated them, so too, from a very natural aspect, I'll just read in Hebrew, so then they automatically thought that, and each person hated each other. And what was conceived? A very painful place. V'taher tzara zu, v'tele mida razeh. That was conceived of this pain and was born this character, this very bad character trait, which actually caused the destruction of the first and second temple. Even the second temple, we know, but what about the first? We usually say it's because of the three big sins: idol worship, murder, and idolatry. So listen to this. The first temple was actually also destroyed because of causeless hatred. But who is the hatred between? The leaders. And whatever the leaders do, it filters down. So by the end of the second temple, it was already too late. It already filtered down to everybody. But we all know there was a split in the kingdom. The northern kingdom and the southern kingdom became split. And that was the hatred amongst the princes, the leaders, the kings at the time. So that's clear. And the Beit Sheni, Posha HaNeged Ben Kol Yisrael. That hatred then filtered down to the rest of the Jewish people. Just as like is brought down in the Gemara, Zehaya B'Chodesh Av. This all took place in the month of Av. What is the zodiac sign for the month of Av? It's the lion. It's the Aryeh. Kikol Echad Dimyono Ka'aryeh. Each one imagined himself like a lion, Yiksof Litrov Eschavero, to embarrass and to rip up his friend. Va'az ivdu gam hatzola tvi'it. Then what happens is you're going to lose the ability to be saved even on a natural level. The supernatural level is the relationship you have with God. On a regular, natural level, at least if you're a nice person, you stand a chance of some hope of surviving with friendly brotherhood assistance. But no, not when you have hatred. Then you think everyone hates you, you hate everyone else, and you lose even that natural thing. If you don't have a proper love amongst brothers, nobody's going to be there to assist his friend. Mi Yakum Yaakov. Now this idea of Jacob, if you look in Amos 7:2, that Jacob is considered very small. Now that's not necessarily a large thing, a good thing, but here, who shall arise with Yaakov, for he is small, meaning he is all broken up and there is no love. Okay, so now we're going to the next piece. It comes out that between these two, these two periods of time, these borders, so the whole package totally disintegrated and fell apart. What package am I talking about? The love of God and the love of a friend. Kisaro mehar min Hashem, because they left, they removed themselves from the mountain. V'saro gam ish me'al echav, when they left the mountain, so to speak. So not only did they leave Hashem, but remember when they were there, they were all one. They were like one. It says they were Yechan Israel, singular fashion. Everywhere else that they encamped, it was always plural. But when they encamped at Mount Sinai, it's singular. And Rashi says there, like one man with one heart. Ki ish echad v'lev echad. But once they departed, it all unraveled. It comes out that the 17th of Tammuz and 9th of Av are the two borders. The Ein Derech Lintos Yaminu small, and there's no real ability or place to move, to maneuver left or right. Therefore, all who chase her will catch up to her, overtake her, Bein HaMitzarim. But it says all who chase her. What does all infer? Even those who chase you who are weak. They have no strength whatsoever. Even they can overtake you, because we lost our ability to be saved either through God or through another human being on a natural level. That even the weakest of our enemies can overtake us. Ki bezman echad na'atzu es kadosh Yisrael. Because it was at this one time, there was the provocation, right? The provocation. And that is Chilul Kedushas Yisrael v'tolei ba'achdus ha'ema. That once we lose that, it's a desecration of the holiness of the Jewish people, that all comes together because of the unity. It's all about unity. Without unity, we're nothing. Ubizman sheni nazru achor min hashchina. And even the second that we move away backwards from the Shechina, El mi yanusu lozru, who is going to come in and assist us? That's why Moses says within this rebuke, Ru'u, ki atem omdim ben shnei gevulim elu. Moses is telling them, you're standing between these two pillars, between these two borders, bein hamitzarim, the straits, mitzad maaseh paran u'maaseh tofel, from the aspect of the building of the calf and the sending of the spies. And in order to give them great warning and strength and fervor, passion towards repentance, that's what he said to them. He said to them, Bein ubein, bein paran ubein tofel. And if you don't do tshuva, az maseh shel paran yikveh lehem bechila doros. Then the action that you took at Paran, which was the spies, it will be established for you as a crime for all generations. Kibo masu beretz kedusha, because you felt the land of Israel was disgusting. You didn't love the land. You didn't want to go into the land. You didn't want to enter the land. You preferred to stay outside the land. It was not appeasing to you. Therefore, measure for measure, you will be in exile. Because you didn't love the land, the measure for measure punishment is you'll be taken out of the land, and then you'll desire it. We were actually exiled on the 9th of Av. And as a result of building the golden calf, it caused the establishment, or let's say the breaking of the city's walls on the 17th of Tammuz. So Beini o Beini, between these two pillars, between these two borders, between these two dates, Yirbutzu Beina Mishpatayim, we are crouched in judgment. The Oyev Kolduhu Yirdarfeim, and even our weakest enemy can attack us on this time period. And according to the explanation, we need to say that the word Lavan is a hint to what? This is the clear card, that's talking about the man. What color was the man? The manna was white. Shahalku al Haman Shahir Lavan. By Rashi says, by Dizahav, that hints to what? That hints to the children of Gad and Reuven, that their money was more precious to them than their own bodies, then they had requested to stay on the other side of the Jordan. Okay, and then he concludes by mentioning about another book that he wrote called Ir Giborim. They explain over there, Pirashnu Atzad HaRemez, there's a hint when it says 11 days journey, right, from Chorev. So al echad aser yom shemisavlim ala churban bein hamikdash b'shana. This is, how does he say it? Achad asar yom. There are 11 days. I haven't seen this in a long time. 11 achad asar yom. There are 11 days in which we mourn for the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash every year, meaning the 9 days of the month of Av, the 17th of Tammuz, the Asar B'Tevet. So that makes 11. You have the 9 days of Av, 17th of Tammuz, and the 10th of Tevet. So why? Because it is Rachok Mishputo Kitzarnu Bizeh Avaloshem Beinu Bein Soivo Perzeh B'Derek Pshuto. I don't know where he's going with that, but that is the bottom line. What he says here is, when it says 11 days from Chorev, it's a hint to the 11 days of the year that we are in Avelut, in mourning over the loss of the temple. So, bottom line, we see that not only can we see clearly what we did wrong through the hinting as the way a leader should give rebuke, but we also realize what the tikkun, what the remedy is. We must love God, and that's the remedy of the sin of idol worship, to rectify ourselves, and in order to get beyond sinat chinam, the causeless hatred that we have for each other, we must pursue with all our ability the ahavta l'reich chamocha, to love your neighbors yourself, and mitzvah Shem with what we call ahavas chinam, with a senseless love, with a love for no reason. We will be overcome. We will be able to overcome this senseless hatred and bring our holy Redeemer, the Mashiach, soon in our days, the Yiboneh Archives, and then, of course, all the 10 tribes, all the 12 tribes will come back to the place where we belong. That's Eretz Yisrael, and we should see the rebuilding of the temple soon in our days.
Shama